Alright, this is maybe the last part of the series on homeschooling, and this one is going to be the hard one for me because I don't want to come off like I'm trashing public school, but this one is the one on why we don't send our children to public school, or why I don't send my child in particular to public school. But this is also has to do with a survey that I did, and other people answered that question as well. And while it's hard for me to talk about this because there are personal things here, there are some very difficult, heavy emotional things here, which I'll probably bleep out so that YouTube doesn't like suppress the video. I think that we need to face these issues head on because these are systemic issues in our school system. I have a bug crawling on me. These are systemic issues in our school system, and I do think it's important to address it. We have a bug. There's a bug. I'm in the A-frame where my chicks are. I'm getting them used to me talking, and the cats are sitting around the outside of it, so the chicks are kind of freaking out. But we also have a bug, which is very exciting, and now we're running around singing the I Have a Bug song, and our friends are chasing us, and it's very cool. Okay, anyway, this is a homeschooling video, not a chicken video. Alright, so why we haven't sent our child to public school. We may need chicks. We may need some chick breaks in this. Okay. Thank you for joining me on 3 Talking Rabbits today. I'm Gail. Today's video is going to be more of a touchy topic in the world of homeschooling because I'm addressing the reasons why many homeschoolers don't send our children to public school. The following information is going to point out some flaws in our mainstream education system and why people are looking for solutions that don't involve reform. Sort of a, if you can't beat them, leave them situation. I want you to keep in mind that in the homeschooling community, just like in the rest of the world, there are a lot of very diverse opinions and motivations. So some of the things I have listed here as reasons you may or may not agree with, and that's okay. I'm going to be saying that a lot, and that's okay. When I did the survey asking for responses, there were no wrong answers. I took everything as valid, and that's important to the people who gave me that information, even if I don't agree with all their points, and that's okay. We have a lot of reasons for not sending our son to public school in general, and to our local district in particular, but I'm not going to turn this into a targeted attack on my alma mater. We might want to send him there someday. With good relations, so it's important that this remains generalized. That said, there are very real issues in public school, and our local district in particular, and those issues definitely played a part in our decision to homeschool. So, reasons not to send a child to public school. Safety. These are our personal reasons. I'll get to the survey reasons in a minute. Safety issues, both mental and physical. The number one reason is bullying. I was horribly bullied when I was a child, and I talked about that in the first video. By the time I was at age 11, I was suicidal. It did not improve until I was about 15 years old, and then it was only a minor improvement. Drug concerns are my second one. We live in a rural area that is plagued with drug use because the kids are bored out of their minds. They have nothing else to do. Schools cannot remove problem children from classrooms, and because it disrupts their education, and they have a right to their education. That goes up to and including children who have SA'd other children. Teachers have no reasonable expectation of safety in public school classrooms, so saith a lawyer not so many months ago, after a teacher was shot by a 6-year-old in her own classroom, after saying the child has a firearm in his bag. And that leads me to school shootings. While the chances of that happening are low, the chances of that happening are not zero. Lack of support for neurodiverse children, lack of diversity, lack of personal support for children. The school day doesn't match my kid's circadian rhythm. He's a night owl. He does not want to get up before 8 o'clock in the morning. He does not want to be in a classroom at 8:15 in the morning. He just doesn't. Restricted movement, restricted bathroom access, and general restricted freedoms, just in general. And for my son in particular, he has pretty bad food allergies, and the chances of cross-contamination or accidental I won't call it poisoning, but, accidental food ingestion that is not so good for him is really not so good for him. Yes, we could move to a better district. We were actually looking at moving in 2019, 2020 before the pandemic hit. The housing market has gone kaboom. It is beyond our financial reach at this point to live in anything that's not a complete dump. And to be honest, we really like living here. It is beautiful and we love it. What's more important is that we should be able to afford this in terms of inheriting it. If we don't inherit it, we could never afford something like this. So, and also, we really like having our multi-generational household. It's important to us. Reasons that other people gave for not sending their kids to public school. Poor quality of education came in at was 7 respondents. Bullying was the top reason with 8 respondents. Safety concerns was at number 7 as well. COVID and general disease mitigation had 7 responses. Now this was both for overreach and for not doing enough. So it was sort of split there, but 7 on that level. 5 said that neurodivergent kids were not thriving in public school settings. 4 said that school is too conservative. 3 listed low diversity. 3 listed grades do not equal worth. 3 said high cost of private school. 2 listed the vaccine mandates as a reason for not sending their children to public school. And New York State, back in, I believe it was 2018, made it so that if your kids weren't vaccinated, they couldn't attend public school. And the homeschooling community got a lot of anti-vaxxers basically dumped on us. And that's a whole other thing that I will get into later because I'm just angry about it on their behalf. Anyway. Few opportunities for extracurricular activities, that came in at 2. Parent had a bad experience with public school education, that was 2 listed. Highly restrictive environment, that had 2. LGBTQ not safe in public school, that had 2. Dislike of public school curriculum choices, 2. Peer pressure, 2. All of the rest had 1 respondent to each. Woke agenda, loss of control, centralized location, I don't necessarily understand that one, but I don't have to. Indoctrination, religious conflict, children were abused by teacher or staff, and teachers are overworked/underpaid. So, the responses to the objections to homeschooling. And I want to be very clear that I'm only responding from a New York State homeschooling perspective, a secular perspective, and my own opinions and my own Google Fu abilities. You're probably looking right into the sun there. There we go. I obviously do not speak for every homeschooler in the nation, and our experiences may be very different. If you had a traumatic homeschooling experience, I am so sorry that you had to go through that. My public school education was traumatic for me, and I want to hold space for all of us in the following responses. Some, but not all, of the claims below come from Elizabeth Bartholet's 2020 article in Harvard Magazine titled "The Risks of Homeschooling." This is not a response to that piece, but I want to make sure to mention it as it has sparked so much debate over the last 3 years. All right, so first claim, schools lose funding when people homeschool. Where does the money go? It doesn't come to us. Schools aren't losing anything because they aren't providing an educational service to homeschool children. And the property owners of the town still pay the school tax directly to the school, even if people don't have children. It's a communal responsibility to fund public education. It is important. We all support it. We just wish it was better. Also, saying that schools lose money is like saying, I know I don't own that car, and I know I don't drive that car, and I know I don't pay for the repairs or the upkeep on the car, but you owe me the gas money. Like what? It doesn't even make any sense. You're complaining about not getting paid more money for work you didn't even do. Also, where does that money go? Because it's not coming to us. Okay, claim number 2. Schools can help kids out of abusive situations. Yep. So can coaches, music teachers, writing instructors, doctors, therapists, etc. Schools have left children in highly abusive situations, knowingly and deliberately. I was there. Mandated reporters are in more places than just public schools. Okay? I'm a mandated reporter. I've made that call twice. And I was told not to make that call one of those times. Neither time resulted in help for the child or the family because social services is completely overwhelmed and underfunded. Sometimes the abuse happens at school. Sometimes it happens in the workplace. Abuse can happen anywhere. Teaching kids how to deal with it, how to get out of it safely, how to recover from it, if and when it happens, are all more important than just sending the kids to school. Talk to your kids about healthy versus abusive relationships so they know what the green flags and the red flags are. Don't leave it up to the school district. Ella, no eating my chicks. I'm talking to a cat. It's like talking to a wall. Okay, claim number 3. Sometimes kids only get to eat in school. America has a massive child poverty issue. School meal programs need to be fully funded. WIC and SNAP need better funding. Food prices are through the roof. We are spending double on what we used to spend on food. Schools also regularly deny meals to children who can't pay for it. Just Google it, and you'll get a dozen stories or more that are going to pop up, and it's really pathetic. It's a poor reflection on our nation. Realistically, a family that is that poor probably is not homeschooling. I'm not saying they aren't, but they probably are not. Generally, homeschool families have an adequate income. The kids are not starving, okay? I'm not going to claim that these families are over the poverty line. I'm not going to claim that they aren't on social services, because a lot of them are. But the vast majority of homeschooling families are not desperately poor. 4, homeschool kids lack socialization. If I had a nickel for every time I've heard this, we could go on another field trip. So we have co-ops. Not everybody does co-ops, but we have co-ops. And a co-op is where a bunch of families get together and they do stuff together, like talk to each other and socialize and have cooperative learning experiences. And it's more of a problem, just like in public school, to keep the kids from talking to each other long enough to get them to do the thing you want them to do. Because it's still a classroom and there's still classroom management involved, okay? So in the co-ops, unlike in public school, the kids do get to talk to each other about important kid stuff. So yes, they do get to socialize. In a location where they can actually hear each other speaking, unlike school lunchrooms, which are a roar of head-spinning noise. Homeschool kids also interact with the general community more on average than public school kids. They have field trips, they volunteer more on average. There are certain families that don't interact much outside their own household, and that's okay too. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they enjoy their privacy. Maybe they have a big family and time-consuming obligations. Did you ask them? Or did you just make a negative assumption based on imaginary suspicions? Maybe you should try making friends, or maybe you should try minding your own business. Either one is a good option. Claim number 5. Homeschoolers don't educate their kids in math and science. While I can't speak for every homeschool family in the nation, in New York State, where I live, I'm sorry about this tarp. in New York State, where I live, science and math are required subjects, and they're often the favorite subjects. Okay, they're my kids' favorite subjects. I'm also coming at this from a secular perspective, and STEAM is very much the focus within our community. Homeschooling families also value history, grammar, writing, persuasive essays, second, third, and fourth languages, special interests, art, music, cultural experiences, etc. This is because these things matter to us. When I mentioned that my son was writing book reports to one of my teacher friends, she said, "We don't do that anymore." I said, "I know." In upper grades, it's not uncommon for homeschool students to take classes at community colleges. And I'm pretty sure that the community colleges offer math and science. And indeed, they're prerequisites to enter. Okay? It's true that a subset of Christian homeschool population uses young earth creationist science, which is not actually scientifically sound information. They have that legal right to do so. Period. And as much as I don't agree with it, because I'm a science geek, those are my personal feelings. And it doesn't override their rights, okay? Furthermore, my high school science book referred to electrons as particles. And that's been factually incorrect for over 50 years. That's older than I am, okay? We were also taught that there were only XX and XY chromosomes in humans, and I'm an XO, okay? So that was discovered back in 1961, and a whole slew of other variations quickly came after it. It's inadequate science in public school. My life science teacher was a young earth creationist. That's not a joke. He absolutely refused to teach us about evolution. He told us to read the chapters because they would be on the test, but he wasn't going to go over it with us. My health teacher went to the same church as my science teacher did, and he refused to teach us about sex ed. There was a herpes epidemic in my high school because they refused to teach us about sex ed. So, no, a public school education is not necessarily better than a homeschool education when it comes to math and science. Just saying. Okay, claim number 6. Public schools don't offer homeschoolers a diploma on graduations, and colleges may not like that. This is partially true. In New York, students may receive what's called a letter of completion from the district if the superintendent is so inclined. They have no obligation to do so. Homeschool students can get their GED, or they can go with a home-issued diploma with a transcript, which many employers, colleges, and trade schools readily and gladly accept. Some don't. If your kid is set on one of the colleges that don't want to take a home education, they need to plan for that. Many homeschooled students graduate high school with an associate's degree from a community college, and the high school stuff doesn't matter at all that much after that. But if they have their heart set on a university that's going to require a high school diploma, then they need to plan for that. Claim number 7. Homeschooling is un-American. Okay. All right. I'm fairly certain that that's not the case. America is not a melting pot, it's gumbo. I don't even know how to respond to that, aside from some of us teach Washington Irving and some of us don't. If you don't know the American fairy tales that Washington Irving wrote, that's okay. If you're upset that I don't make my child say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning with his little hand over his little heart, he knows that the Pledge of Allegiance was written by Francis Bellamy one town over. Anyway, go on. It's okay. All right, claim number 8. We don't know how homeschool students are doing compared to public and private school kids. And my response to that is, well, then we didn't look very hard for the data now, did we? While not every state requires it, standardized testing is required in New York State and several other states from years 4 through 8 every other year and grades 9 through 12 every year. And in standardized testing, the results are as follows. Private schools are up at the top. They do get to handpick their students after all. Then homeschool children who have a structured curriculum are very, very close to them. And then there's a sizable gap where the vast majority of public school children ride. And then just below that are homeschool children who have an unstructured education. That's how the test scores shake out. You can look it up. This is not throwing any shade at unschooling. This is an average of how the standardized test scores routinely shake out. There are many factors that cannot be accounted for in the data, and knowing enough unschooling families, I suspect that it would not matter if their children were in public school, private school, or structured homeschooling. They'd be miserable and still test poorly. This doesn't mean that they aren't being educated, it just means that they don't do well on tests. If we go back and look at the structured education kids, and we took out the word homeschool and put in the words privately tutored, how does this change the stereotype? Because that's what homeschooling children is. They're privately tutored, especially in American households. Claim number, how do we want to do this? 9. Homeschoolers are a bunch of kooky, conservative, anti-vaxxer religious nuts. And I paraphrase that. Okay, Ms. Harvard, because that's where that came from. You have a nice day too. Would you like to throw some more opinions our way? I'm sorry, girls, I moved my hands. Yes, I did. They're getting closer to me. It's really exciting. So, she basically told us what she thinks about us there. And she's wrong. I'm sure she's right in some ways, but she's pretty much wrong. I admit to being kooky. I do mix stripes with polka dots all the time. If you saw my leggings and my dress today, you'd probably roll your eyes. I wear socks with sandals. And I let my kid wear PJs all day if he wants. We work from home. You know, there it is. I do make him put on real clothes if he has a Zoom meeting with his friends. And I also make him brush his hair and his teeth if we're going out. I make him brush his hair and his teeth anyway. But, you know. I do want to address the anti-vaxxer thing. Full disclosure, I like vaccines. If there's a new vaccine that comes out, I'm like, shoot me up! Okay? I am a fan of science. I make no bones about that. But I am unwaveringly and unconditionally in favor of bodily autonomy and medical autonomy in this country. And if you choose not to vaccinate yourself and your children, while I think that's a bad idea, that's my opinion, but you have that right unquestioningly. Okay? Just get that out there. This is going to be a hard one because I'm kind of mad about it. New York State back in 2018 did a vaccine mandate where they kicked the anti-vaxxers out of the public school by removing the religious exemption. While I understand that, this was a major disservice to the children that got kicked out, their families, and the homeschooling community. This homeschooling should always be a choice for the student and the family. It should never be a last resort for any reason, okay? It should never be forced on anyone for any reason. From a disease mitigation standpoint, this isn't exactly great either. It's clumping up a bunch of unvaccinated people together in small co-ops, and the New York State Education Department got rid of their problem by dumping it on us. And then they're saying that we're a bunch of unvaccinated people. Well, you know what? You dumped the anti-vaxxers on us. What did you expect? Like you created this problem for our community. You tore us apart. And now you're blaming us over the thing that you did. My heart goes out to the parents whose children loved their schools. We had so many crying mothers when this happened, and we were all set to care for them. We were like, okay, you know what? We can do this. We've been doing this forever. We'll help you through it. We've got all this wonderful, strong community. And then COVID hit. And every bad stereotype about homeschooling children being isolated came true. It was heartbreaking. And friendships were wrecked. We fought about it. It was very difficult on our whole community. I have a problem with people who look down on us for things that are not our fault. Okay? The state is the one who kicked these people out of their schools. We picked them up. We're taking care of them. To call unvaccinated children potentially dangerous when you won't even remove actually dangerous children from your classrooms is absolutely freaking ridiculous. I'm just laying it out right there. The cognitive dissonance should hurt. Religious nuts. And while I personally am not going to call them nuts, the homeschooling community is comprised of a small majority of religious people, probably about 60% in New York. Some of them homeschool because of their religious beliefs, and the 2016 study I've mentioned before has it at 12% for religion as the #1 reason to homeschool, and this was beat out by a whopping 29% citing safety concerns in public school environments as their main reason to homeschool. My informal survey basically aligns with that, though it's a very small sample size, so you just take that for what it is. Most of these people are very nice people who love their kids and happily send them off to college, trade school, successful relationships and endeavors and everything like that, just like normal people. Many of them are politically conservative, just like half the country is. Big surprise. I don't have to agree with their politics to like them as people, or at least be polite to them. So, responding to the article in the Harvard magazine, politeness could go a long way. That said, there have been some absolutely abysmal curriculums on the market for religious homeschoolers. Gothard's ATI train wreck rather springs to mind. And I'm sure that most people have never heard of it before the Amazon Prime docuseries came out. But homeschoolers rarely use a single boxed curriculum for their child's education. We seem to be, just like any other teacher, addicted to educational materials. We supplement like crazy. We can't seem to stop ourselves. I've yet to meet a family who only uses one single thing. Not saying they aren't out there. I'm just saying I haven't met any of them. Educational neglect absolutely does happen. It can happen in public schools and it can happen in homeschool. It can happen in private schools too. To address the racist elephant in the room, when the homeschooling community is, or while the homeschooling community is certainly not exempt from racist BS, the public school system is also rife with it. So if you go to Google and you type in racist school, you just pause the video. I'll wait. You're going to be gone a while. In other words, it's not a problem that you can conveniently foist off onto homeschooling people while crying, "Think of the children!" and then stick your head in the sand for all the racist stuff that happens in public schools. Like, deal with your own mess. Come on. As for ours, we are not organized in a way that allows us to make large systemic changes. What we can do is create safe spaces for like-minded people. We support our fellow homeschoolers because we're united in that cause, but we all know that we are not going to get along if we are tossed in the same room. This is why we homeschool. I wouldn't infringe on the local Lee's co-ops, and they certainly would not enjoy joining Finger Lakes. We play the game differently, and that's okay. None of it's meant as an excuse. This is a good, healthy look at reality. It's just a statement of fact. And it's a frank acknowledgement that diversity means everyone, and that there is a place for everyone. It's just not the same place at the same time. So I'm a secular academic, fully vaccinated, left-leaning, politically independent, religiously unaffiliated, science-loving, LGBTQ plus supporting, homesteading, homeschooling, cis-het married mom who holds a degree in art history, art education, with a minor in philosophy from 2 well-respected universities. And if that's not crunchy liberal enough for some folks, I don't know what is. Okay, I also don't eat mammals, but that's not a choice, so I guess, you know, whatever. To say there are 1,000 secular homeschooling families, much like my own, within driving distance of me. Oh my goodness, look at you girls flying! I'm impressed. To say that all homeschoolers are X is foolish and ignorant, and the homeschooling community is wondrously diverse and becoming more so every single year. Outlawing homeschooling would not ease child poverty, child abuse, educational neglect, racism, sexism, homophobia, or any of the various forms of violence that plague our public schools right now. Like, I mean, our kids are nice, but they don't have the superpower to fix that, if you know what I mean. Like, seriously, you're overestimating their power of circle of goodness. It only has a 10-foot radius. It only lasts like 3 rounds. But it's nice that you have so much confidence in our homeschooling children that you want them in your public schools. Public schools have some major issues that have caused people to either never send their children, like us, or to pull their kids out. Violence, abuse, poor education, bullying are not being able to provide adequate educational support to kids who need just a little bit of extra help, and are all the top of the reasons not to send your kid to public school. Some of those are fixable through adequate funding. Some of those need policy changes and major systemic restructuring that are unlikely to happen. As people have shared their why I took my kids out of public school stories with me, there is a lot of pain. And I'm going to put a little warning here that these are hard subjects. We're moving into hard territory right now. Kids being abused, neglected, punished for no reason with no recourse, bad psychology dictating educational methods, discrimination, hatred, bullying, deteriorating mental health, and school administrators stonewalling parents who just want their kids to be happy and to learn stuff. I'm not going to share their individual stories. Those belong to them, not me. But these are all very real issues. What I hope you take from this is that homeschooling is a viable educational choice if you can manage it. Public school is a viable educational choice if it's right for your children, and it should be right for the vast majority of children. Private school is a viable educational choice if you can afford it. I want to thank you for sticking with me through this series of videos, and for being around as I socialize my chicks, because it's very important to socialize your chicks. I hope that this video did not come off as me bashing public schools, because that is not at all how I intended that to go over. Again, I just want to point out that there are very real problems in our public schools that are oftentimes enough reasons for parents to opt to homeschool. Just because there's something wrong with your public school does not mean that homeschooling is the right choice for your family. It may be the right choice for your family, and it is a viable choice, but it also should always be a choice, not a last resort. In an ideal world. Unfortunately, we don't always live in an ideal world. Right, chickies? Sometimes we don't live in an ideal world, and that's just how that is. You're a roo, aren't you? I'm fairly certain of it. I think he's a rooster, guys. It happens. And it's the friendliest one, too, which is why I'm fairly certain it's a roo. Hi, you want to come say hello to people? Come here. Peep, peep. Look at that headdress. Isn't that the cutest chick ever? It's a handsome little baby. Whether we're a roux or whether we're... Okay. Whether we're a roux or whether we're a hen, we're a handsome little baby. We know how to freak out. All right. I want to thank you for joining me on 3 Talking Rabbits today. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. If you have pulled your own children out of public school and you feel comfortable sharing the reasons below, please leave it in the comments. Please be polite to everybody as much as you can. I'm not here to bash public schools. I don't want that to turn into that. If you got pulled out of public school as a student, I want to hear about how your life changed after that, good or bad. Let me know. All right? Thank you very much, and I will catch you next time.